We'll let Athelia kind of introduce herself as well, but just as a quick intro for you guys, she is currently working as a product type designer over with Google Labs and is doing some really cool stuff. She's been involved in some amazing, just amazing Google projects and other stuff going on. She has also launched her own education type courses in the past and has a very, very good sense for one, mentorship, helping other designers besides just the design craft in general, but is also someone who's very insightful to talk to. And I have enjoyed all of my affiliation with her. So we're excited to hear more from her and to get that going. So,
Oh my gosh. Thank you very much, Tim. I feel like you talked me up way too much, but I appreciate it. I'm Athelia. I've been in design for, I want to say, approaching a decade now. I was at YouTube for about 7 years, not including an internship, and then I moved over to Google Labs in September. So I guess I've seen a lot of the big company, big tech corporate design process. Admittedly, not a ton of the startup or like agency process, but I know enough people to have a sense of like how different my work can look from them or from their work. Like Tim said, I've done mentorship in various different ways, whether it's through capstones with universities or just like one-on-ones that come over like across my plate. So it's really fun for me to be able to contribute and like give feedback and also help people out. I know it's a really difficult industry to break into, but possible. Importantly, it's possible.
Athelia, so grateful you're able to be here and hang out with us today. For the folks in the chat that are new here, this is Feedback Friday. Welcome. If it's your first time, this is where Tim and Athelia and myself review resumes, portfolios, whatever design asset that somebody like yourself could paste in the chat. We do this every Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you're unable to get on the list today, which we are currently already booked, feel free to join us again on a future Friday. If your goal is to get your design asset reviewed, highly recommend showing up 10 minutes early. So just to make it a better chance that you end up on the list earlier than later. For reference today, our first candidate on the list today was 40 minutes early. And I don't even usually open the chat that early, but today I was trying to get ahead of things. Everything is currently being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. There's a link at the very top of the chat, but do I still have it on my clipboard? I think so. Look at that. The benefit there being, if you have your thing reviewed, you're welcome to just focus without having to take notes. You can take a look at the recording at a later time, but that does mean that we are also streaming your content to the greater world. So if you have something like your phone number on there, for example, you may want to either censor that before we take a look at it or consider sharing a different design asset, knowing that it's shared with the public. Tim, Athelia, those are all the notes I have on my list. Tim, first on the list today, we've got a long friend coming back to us. So we've got Rommel leading us off again, and I'm excited to see what Rommel is up to now, because the last time we've talked with him, he has presented us an unusual asset that they're attempting to utilize to target a particular audience. Rommel, hello, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me again. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in life. I have built an embedded AI-powered app on my portfolio, and it is attempting to meet recruiters halfway, or any kind of hiring manager. So basically, people can paste a URL or a job description and tell them if I am fit or not. And I created a case study for it, and this is what we're looking at. We're looking at the case study, not the app itself. Last time we spoke about this.
Rommel, before we get too far, will
Sure.
you also just introduce a little bit of your background and some of your immediate goals for Athelia?
Oh.
That way she has the same running context that we have since we've met you a couple of times.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. My goal is to just review the case study and bring a little bit of voice, my voice, into the case study, and perhaps also a bit of confidence in the process. Last time we spoke, I did write a first draft of a case study that felt a little bit clinical and maybe a little bit project oriented, which is certainly not the case for this particular case study because it's a personal project. And so something struck me from last time was that Timmy said it should carry my voice and my perspective and my goals with this. And so I rewrote it into a second draft, and it starts off with I built something, and I also created a little bit of a TLDR. The content is mostly the same, but I rewrote it in a way that it's coming from my perspective and my background and my history and what my goals are. It's a little bit long-winded, uh, as you can see, but I think the main interest is, like, take a look at it from a sort of like a skimming point of view, and let me know if something is sticking out or if something needs more clarification. Um,
Yeah.
do you have
So
any
so
questions
Rommel,
so far?
if I recall, you are a product designer who orients themselves around design systems a little bit.
Yeah.
You have a pretty good working portfolio already, and it's been through some changes recently. One
Yes.
of it being on your homepage is the inclusion of a AI job fit check tool that
Yes.
people can post a URL to or paste a job description, and it gives you an output that is, hey, this is a good fit or this is not a good fit. And this is the corresponding case study to that homepage tool.
Yes.
Okay. And this is your second rewrite for it. So I guess today, Nate, where do you want to start with on this, or Athelia, either one of you? Where should we start here?
I just had one other quick question for you, Rommel. Help remind us the target elevation that you're looking for in your next role. Senior level, mid level, what was that?
It is senior level, but somewhere in between mid and senior level, I would say.
Understood. So I'm still scanning through this case study here. Timothelia, if there are any quick things that pop out in your mind, feel free to take the lead as I scan through.
I was going to say, in terms of skimmability, because that's something you'd mentioned, I actually find it really difficult to skim. And I'm trying to articulate why. I think part of it is that things fade in pretty slowly. So sometimes I'm like up half the page before the next piece fades in, kind of like what you just saw or what I just saw in Tim's screen share. There is a lot of text, and you've identified this yourself. I'm curious whether that was because you had a lot to say and weren't able to like cull it down a little bit more. The approach can differ here, right? It could be in the body text that you use. I think it's really nice and stylistic. I'm finding it personally hard to read through it, and I'm not dyslexic, or like skim through it. And when I have a ton of text that I'm looking through, I'm going to be looking for things like bold text, headings to help me anchor myself. And I don't see a ton of that either.
Yeah.
In areas like the build, okay, day 1 to 2, just thinking, now I'm like, all right, so you are describing the build to me, but I'm not actually as interested in the like those little pieces, the description, as I am like the why, or like, was there anything else that you really want to highlight about your skill set here? So anyway, those are very, very quick first responses.
I like where Athelia's mind is at a lot. Rommel, have we ever talked about target audiences for this? I know we've chatted a couple times. Okay. And
Yes, we did.
Perfect. For folks in the chat, target audiences typically are the recruiter, the hiring manager, and then that tertiary audience, future peers is what we currently refer to them as. I like where Athelia's mindset is at. I'm fearful of the amount of text that you have in regard to if we know the target audience isn't reading the case study and we know that their goal is to skim it as quickly as possible, then the quandary becomes how can we make a case study that's consumable for that of the folks that scroll quickly. So that's where we want to play into two things, really. One is emphasizing storytelling within headings, because headings are the thing that one consumes when skimming. And then two is leaning heavily into imagery, just because imagery is so persuasive and so quickly communicative on the process by which you're attempting to explain your story. I'm looking at the text to image ratio. That I think could heavily lean more toward imagery. And I'm fearful that when I say that, most folk think, let's reduce the amount of textual content. And that's not really what I mean. I'm really attempting to describe, can we find a way to take your current textual content and manipulate it into a fashion that presents itself in a more aesthetic method? Imagery is a constant solution to that, but we could also use HTML to do that as well. And then a second plan of action could always be to reduce content and focus just on what you're attempting to tell. But at the moment, I don't have confidence that we need to reduce the content. I'm more confident that we need to focus on enabling the content to be legible through skimming, which would rely more on storytelling in your headers and then imagery involved. Let me pause there. Yeah. How you feeling about that so far? Because it's real generic, like high level feedback, but I constantly struggle with, I don't know if it's actionable for you just yet. How are you feeling so far?
I'm feeling pretty good. I totally agree. It's a wall of text. And, in the past, I was trying to mitigate that by collapsing and expanding sections. But I did listen to your feedback in the past where things shouldn't be hidden because people will just skip it entirely.
Sure.
To begin with. But yeah, illustration and a little bit more imagery would probably help it a lot more. And as Ophelia said, like highlighting certain things, certain key sentences or key words, perhaps.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I really like the terminal visuals actually and how they add to the visual styling. Like, it seems like you have a very clear voice and tone for your portfolio, which is awesome. I think what I struggle with is I'm not really sure why it's there or what you're trying to tell me. So if you are trying to express, oh, like terminal architecture, I know how to read this. I am the bridge between product design and engineering. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't know that I understood that as a goal from just reading the other parts of your case study. So while these are really interesting and like there's so much you could do, like clearly Tim is like going through all the different little pieces of it, and that's really fun. When you say that moment is when the scope started to shift in my head and you show like the file structure, I'm still like, I don't know what the story you're trying to tell is. So I think it's a good tool. Maybe it's also about story refinement. Is the build important here, like the whole section, because you're trying to show off that you are on the UXE end of things? Is that something you're looking to do? Or is it like you're just excited about the fact that you were able to build something out that included all of these different things that were well reasoned? So I think thinking about those a little bit as part of the storytelling will also be important and help you figure out how you want to use the visuals.
Oh, I like that. I like where you started, where I'm bridging myself from the designer's point of view into engineering. It is something I've thought about before, and perhaps I could tweak this in a way that it meets that requirement a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, I got another thought. I don't want to bogart the mic here. How are you feeling?
I'm having, I think, a style problem with the copywriting realm. So there's two things about the visuals and copywriting for me, I think, are standing out, which is one, visually, there's just something, I think it's because you're doing a case study of something that's already on your website. So it's kind of like having a brand asset on a brand. So like, it's hard for this to stand out, right? It doesn't feel quite embedded the way it's supposed to, which is such a unique, interesting challenge, to try to like show a little bit of visual interest by showing the exact same thing I'm already looking at. I don't know what the exact solution is, but I do wonder if there's a little bit of that going on. Things aren't quite centered, and I think that's kind of a little bit interesting to look at. It just kind of feels slightly like a lean-to a little bit. And I don't know if maybe you had some reasoning that it was going to go in between the navigation bar up here or something, but that's something I was noticing. Like Athilia said, the text is hard to read. It is a very more, it's leaning towards like a more technical type of font, which is not super easy to read. But the content itself also, for me, as someone who has read a lot of Claude code output and who also works a lot with Claude on stuff, it reads a lot like a Claude output. where it's often these like it tries to give you like the thing is like speed is mismatched as valuable as speed to match, or the core realization, the problem isn't this, it's this. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of it's not this, it's this.
Yeah.
And I see that pattern a lot. Like this becomes design principle, this. That is, I think that's I don't know, maybe I hesitate because I know everyone has different writing styles, but for me, it undermines my desire to read this because it feels a lot like a narrative that Claude's trying to write, instead of it being more in your own personal voice.
That is
And
true. That is true. Mainly
yeah,
because, I try to, I'm not the best writer, and there's way too many languages rattling in my head. And so I leaned a little bit into Claude for, help. But yes, you are right. And I see that myself, not being an English native. I already see it's not this, but it's that also this.
yeah.
I
And
see, I see the, but
there's also some artifacts. Claude will try to dramatize certain things that I don't necessarily think are worth dramatizing. Like, you're talking about like your build, you're separating out by day 1, day 3, day 4, and day 5, and like that is kind of a cool. That's like a cinematic way to do a build, but the purpose is not necessarily the days, right? The days don't necessarily add or take away value from what you're building. The purpose is why you're building it, and so even organizing this by project piece, like a day, you might say like building the file structure instead of day 1, or doing the analyze section instead of day 3, is a little bit more purpose driven versus just functional day 1, day 4, day 5. Even getting into areas where it's like nobody asked for these. It's like, well, if nobody asked for these, like, why should I care about it? I just don't find this to be an important detail. I don't know. And so like,
could we condense it, or should it be condensed?
I think it depends on the narrative that you're trying to tell. It's going to depend on that. But for me, even looking at here, like these sections, like I don't know if these sections are selling me very well on this, because even like the moment, uh, I don't know, I don't know what this section really is. If I was scanning it, the moment, what would the
Okay.
moment be here? Who I am. I think who you are is very important, Rommel. I think you're an awesome. Having met you in person, by the way, I think you're an awesome person. But
Did you
I don't
guys
know
meet
if
up
this
in
deserves.
Arizona?
Yeah, I don't know if this deserves to be a section here. So I like there's just I might rethink some of the architecture of this and realign it towards a story that is a little bit more suited for your actual goals here. Um, Not that because I don't think any of the information here is necessarily bad to have. I just don't think it's organized maybe the right way for you.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Good.
agree. I was gonna say too, when this idea was first pitched at the start of this, I was like, that's very interesting. I don't think anyone has, I haven't heard of this before. But what I get from your case study isn't like, oh yeah, that's a really interesting idea. It's okay, I guess I know how he built it. And so I think what you should identify for yourself is the role that you're trying to like gun for, right? Like, is it the UX engineering role? Is it bridging? And then from there, that's what you want to showcase in your case study. Why is it called job fit check, for example? Super simple question, right?
Uh,
But that's a very specific framing. Why did you want to include it like as a primary CTA on your website where people are often like, oh, contact me. So something like there have been design decisions taken, and I really want to hear more about those, more than I want to hear about the fact that you were enabled by Claude or whichever tool you were using to build
yeah,
it out. Like that is also very interesting, and you can totally have learnings from that, and maybe that deserves a little bit of a section to like better understand how you orchestrated things,
yeah.
and how you like wrote a system prompt to make sure that the output that you got was, legit, or however you approach it. I'm not really hearing any of that in the case study, and I think that's what like is what I'm not super compelled by. Even though like there are signs of things, there are signs that you did some research, there are signs that you thought about like why it was this moment that was the catalyst for why you brought up this project or wanted to make this project. So a lot of the why, I'm always asking why, not because, it's easy to ask, but because I'm really curious. It sounds like a really interesting idea. I'm just not getting the answers.
Athelia, let me follow up with you on that. So this is a subject that's been on the back of my mind, and I'm contemplating and wanting to challenge the value that this case study brings back to Rommel's goals. Rommel, help remind me, your goal is to get hired at a larger organization, right?
Not necessarily, because I was a lot more comfortable with the startup environment rather than the big enterprise, and I've tried both. I'm thinking the reason for this is really, like, am I UX UI or am I product? And I'm kind of on the fence, and so maybe my hesitation is also showing up in the writing itself.
Well, so my mind's going a slightly different direction. The power of case studies is that a potential employer can look at them and then correlate the relevancy of how you problem solve to their own business problems. And they can empathize with, well, if I hire Rommel, this is what that process of solving my problems could potentially look like. So now I'm fearful that, well, this is a cool problem that you're trying to solve, except that I don't know how correlating it is to that of your target audience, because it's a very meta problem. And I'm fearful that it's too abstract in comparison to another case study, for example, like your second case study, which is much more dedicated toward a typical product design process. I would speculate that that's a stronger case study because it's more empathetic to the target audience's business problems. Athelia, let me ask you, like, how are you feeling about that mindset? Is this a problem that you would find fascinating to solve for your own business, or is this too abstract for you?
I think there are pieces that I can learn from here that would help me understand whether that would fit on my team. So, for example, prototyping things, very relevant on my team. Seeing that you're understanding how to shape a system prompt, I could be like, oh, interesting. Yeah, that's a skill that, we wouldn't have to teach on top of, helping you ramp up on a big team like mine, for example. So I think there are pieces of it that I could still learn from. But I think another point that you bring up, or that comes to mind for me, is how you curate like which projects to show. So I see that this is the first project, like on the leftmost part of your homepage, underneath the fit check itself. And that speaks to me, or that what that tells me is that you value it a ton in like showcasing what you want to do, the skills that you have. And then when I read it, I'm like, I don't know, like was this really the best project that they could showcase up front? So there is a curation question or component as well. So yeah, I think I tend to be a little bit more open when it comes to projects that I see from candidates. I want to learn about the skill and like the approach and mindset. And, if, for example, when I was working on YouTube, a candidate had worked in video before, yeah, that's a bonus, but we're not going to gate on that either. Like if you can think really well and really strongly, and if you can reason, if you can prototype, if you can do all the other skill related things, I think that is what I'm looking for most. But I think Nate's point is still very valid. Like if you can put your best foot forward because the problems that you were solving at another startup, there's a lot more pertinent there. It's easier to make the like connection and skill set match. Like, yeah, that's a good case study.
Rommel, I'm looking at the clock. How are you feeling about all of this so far? Are you feeling like you're in a place where you've got some actionability?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much for the feedback. I kind of wanted to wrap it up with the same kind of voice and tone and writing in the about section, because we also covered the about section. And that was kind of missing last time. And so if you take a look at the about section, I just wanted to have a little bit of a quick feedback for the about me. But I see Timmy is busy re-editing.
I'm attempting to see if I can get the story quite right. And as I'm slimming things down, I'm also finding a couple of just key narrative things that I can point out to you now that I feel comfortable.
Sure.
If we're talking about how you built this, first of all, I'm going to say this humorously, but also maybe as something to think about. the case study title, I built an AI that decides if you should hire me, sounds a little bit like an anime that you might watch as a tech person, right? Like this is my AI that decides if you should hire me story, right? And so I think that maybe this is missing the bite that tells me why I should care about this. Like it sounds more like a creative endeavor rather than a like professional endeavor. Like it doesn't tell me the results, the outcome. It's not framed in a product language, and
It
I think
actually
that
was.
yeah. Um, so with when I'm going through this, something I'm noticing is that your problem framing is very abstract, and so I've rewritten it a little bit so it's about you, because it is about your inbox, and so making it a little bit more about you, I think, is more personal. It gives you the ability to tell the story about yourself, because you know the end goal is to tell a story about you, but that you were doing a thing, and this thing has a good outcome. So if we make this a little bit more about you, that helps. We can simplify this. I think this design requirement research table you did is an excellent opportunity for a image embed rather than just straight text embed. You could style this and make it look a little bit more pleasing to look at. But you go straight from research, or I guess straight from problem framing into now I have research results, without any process about how you come to this conclusion. And so I would actually be looking for maybe a section here that talks about how you came to this conclusion for your research. That's true here. So you go from here, this problem, to research insights. I'm looking to see more there. You also go straight from here to I designed the output of this tool. And you don't talk about your design process in here either, or what your considerations might have been, and like how you came to that. So I think I feel like I'm missing huge parts of your process, even as I'm getting into the specific copywriting here. Your constraint section also, I think, is a little bit too focused on the wrong things, right? I don't know if I don't need necessarily you to say that your coding level is hobbyist. You don't necessarily need to include 1 week. You don't need to include that you're job hunting. You can just say, I'm a UX designer.
Mhm.
My budget was 0. And that's fine. And then I think you're also focusing a little too much on your constraints. Anyways, there's a couple of things that as I go through here, I'm just realizing that the story, just like I mentioned, it just doesn't feel like I'm getting enough of your process in here. It's more about celebrating that you were able to do a thing, which I think is very cool, but just maybe not the purpose of what the case study has set out to be. This is just me tinkering with it. You should be able to catch this in the stream if you want to go back and read some of this.
Yeah,
I've just been
exactly.
doing it in the background, but hopefully some of this will be a little helpful for you.
Yes, absolutely. I think in the beginning there with the moment section, that was kind of like very similar to this is gonna sound pop culture-ish, but like Kung Fu Panda, where the master freaks out and sends a duck, and the feather unlocks the prisoner. That's kind of what happened here, where like I kept getting inboxes, email with the request for, do you know React? And I'm like, no, I don't know React, but starting this project and creating this, like, hey, you can check for yourself if I fit or not. I actually learned React in the process, and so it became that. It became that that phrase. A person often meets his destiny on the road he took to avoid it. But that was the French philosopher, not Master Uruguay, of course. Anyways, should we move to? I'm not going to hog up too much.
I think that, so as Lily's mentioning here, I think that is a fun narrative hook. That's really that is a really, I think that's a cool concept. I've experienced that myself, where you accidentally like drown yourself in cool stuff to do because you discover something that unblocks you, and you realize that there's like a whole nother world of stuff to do.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't know if this is the wrapper you want for that story, or if it is, I don't know if that's like your headline piece. So that story, I think, may deserve a different vehicle, or like a more dedicated space for it. That might even be like, it might be, that might even be like a great, I don't know if that's like necessarily an about piece, but it sounds like a great story. It just isn't necessarily the same thing as like a case study. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my quick thoughts on that. We do have to move forward though.
Can we take a look at the About Me section real quick? I'm sorry for hogging the time.
single sentence?
Unfortunately, we
No, okay.
cannot today.
It's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. We'll take it another time. Thank you for having me again.
Next on the list, Tim, we've got Gailey. And I believe we've spoken with Gailey before, though the site that I'm looking at has a bunch of fancy things. Athelia, I'm going to paste it in the chat, as well as for the rest of the folk who want to take a look.
Hi.
Hey, Gailey, do you want to reintroduce yourself just briefly? So that way Athelia gets some good context about you. And then let's hear about what you're hoping to accomplish today.
Gotcha. So, I'm currently a senior student, undergrad student studying UX design, and I am graduating in 2 months. So I've been applying for new grad or entry level jobs. I have done like 4 internships before, and I have also like joined this Feedback Friday twice, one for my portfolio and one for my resume. And like recently I added a new case study, so I want to ask for feedback on that new case study specifically, because I know like you guys have already like gone over like the overall website. So like the new case study is the Epic Connect, the second one.
That's great. Thank you for that quick intro, Kaylee. Hey, did you have, or Athelia, do you have any other questions about who Kaylee is before we start digging into this?
No, and I'll kind of let her portfolio speak for itself.
All right, let's get into it then.
Gailey, you're doing so many things well here. I first want to commend you. I know you mentioned you had 4 internships in the past, and just a brief overview of the case studies you do have. I want to commend your, what's the word here? I want to commend your ability to have steered away from case studies that are aesthetic and shallow in nature, and you've dived into like fairly realistic case studies that at top glance aren't particularly sexy in nature, but are real core business problems that industries are needing solving. So I think your positioning here, you're killing it so far.
Thank you. Yeah. I guess I can like briefly explain this case study. So this is basically the capstone project that I am doing in college, like for my graduation, and I'm teaming up with other people in my major to design a self-management app, a healthcare app for people with epilepsy, to help them track their triggers, seizures, and like everything related to epilepsy. So yeah, and like this is mobile first. So like most of the design mock-ups on the case study is mobile, and like the scope of the capstone project is also limited to mobile. But I did expand this project and like do a little like a small side project in my free time, and I explored like designing UI for the AI glasses, the Meta Ray-Bans, and when I was just like curious like how this kind of device can like support people with epilepsy, because from what I like based on the study, the project that I was working with my teammates, like this app, like people only use this app after they experience seizure, after like it's to record previous experience, past experience. Is not something that users can use to support themselves when they are experiencing seizure or other emergency. So I was wondering, like, is there any other kind of device that could support user better in real time? So I guess like the glasses could be a cool idea to explore. So I added that thing, that like part into the case study. So yeah, like I don't have experience with wearables at all. So
Hey, Gailey.
any feedback?
I'm so sorry to interrupt. You're diving pretty far down, like the research and the things that you've accomplished. I love you're passionate about it. We don't know need to know the details. The goal here is to like identify how this case study is positioning you. And realistically, the fewer details you give us about the project, the more we can determine how much we can consume from the case study. So let's just dive into some review of the case study, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Perfect. Let's cover some real. Oh, Tim, did I cut you off?
No, I just want to comment first of all. You have a very good, you have a very consistent brand identity throughout this project. So when we're talking about visuals, before anything else, I'd commend you on your visuals. Your visual identity throughout this case study is very consistent. You're using a good choice of colors that blend together very nicely. It's not overly, I'm gonna say overly, but I don't know if overly is the right word. It's not boring to look at, right? It's you have enough disruption to the text. That your text is in general the right size, right? You're meeting scannability rules for the most part. You do have good headlines that match your eyebrows. So like challenge is met by a very descriptive header here, which I think is good. So like at a glance, I'd say this is it looks very mature. Maybe down here it does break out. Your margins are a little bit different. I assume that's just to accommodate larger images though. It is very minor. It's a very minor break in things, but maybe just check your width settings for these framer frames. They just seem to be a little extra wide. But overall, there's not like a lot of I don't know if there's a lot of low hanging fruit to accomplish here. And I'm curious what your thoughts are, Kaylee, about where you think the most work or the most review work needs to be done, if you had to say.
I guess like regarding storytelling, like when you scan through the case study, it is like easy enough to like understand everything like high level.
Yeah, I can jump in a little bit. I want to also say, like Tim was saying, this is a really well-structured case study. Clearly, you've done a lot of thinking around it. So everything that I'm bringing up, they're more nitpicks than anything, but I think still very relevant. Also, if my laptop's moving, it's because my cat's on it. His name is also Finn, like the seahorse. Um, okay, a couple things are, if you go down a little bit more to the radial but yeah, sorry, not radial buttons, the pie charts here. This might be a me thing, but I found it hard to read that it was 50% of people with epilepsy report memory problems, or like 77% of people with epilepsy don't have a systematic way. Is that the intention? I'm asking because it might be worth the redundancy, but I know like people might think differently. It might be worth the redundancy just for like a full sentence, like a fuller sentence. It just
Yeah.
makes it easier for me to read. And because it's an image, if someone's going through this with a screen reader or something, they might not clock the 50%. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes
just a
sense.
little thing. If you go down a little further to ideation, accessibility when designing for a vulnerable population, I really enjoy that there is some sort of through line through the case study where you talk about memory and you talk about management to some degree. And so that relates to personalize and it relates to the one below it, create a positive perception. I'm trying to understand if these were goals because I wasn't really sure. The section is good. It has a lot of good like information. I wasn't sure if it all was cohesive to ideation, accessibility when designing for a vulnerable population. So under that umbrella, was it like color styling? Was it accessibility by way of like personalizing it to people? Just like a bit of a nit around how you're presenting up front and framing up front. But honestly, that's again more of a nit. And then I really liked your like 2x2 chart. I think it was helpful to see that this was done. But I'm also curious, you know, you were constantly discussing to make sure everyone is on the same page. What did that ever change? I can imagine that being a question that comes up in design interviews, for example. Like, was it difficult to keep that alignment? You don't necessarily have to, spell it out here, but know that those questions are coming up for me. So it could be worth like prepping for like the interview portion. Also, I'm not really sure, like this is a really good description of something that happened, But was there a reason why you wanted to put this chart in particular? Was it because it also shows like the features that you guys wanted to really concentrate on? That is a little bit missing for me, was like the feature set, I guess, based on all the research or the information you had shown before. I know this is a lot more information. I wanted to point out a couple more things. If you scroll down further, oh, sorry, Tim, you're typing. Yeah, scroll down a little further. I like the design decisions. This area with annotations really nice because I like that you've pulled certain things out to really highlight them. It's often I have a really big gripe around people just putting full screenshots of a page and not really telling me where to look. But I am concerned that this would be not as legible on mobile, especially because the text is part of the image. Oh no.
Yeah,
That
I haven't
one.
I haven't fixed it for the mobile.
Okay.
It does look like it is not quite mobile optimized yet. I'm sure Kaylee
More
has it on her
responsive,
roadmap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And
I also
then,
wanted to comment.
yeah.
I think that this is a great strength, and I would love to see this more. One thing that that might end up biting you is just that it is a little bit on my screen. It's a little bit pixelated, just a tiny bit. So, that's not a stream art. I mean, maybe the stream artifact's also increasing it, but even here, it's a little bit blurry on my screen. And so you may want to re-render this as a slightly higher, a slightly bigger size, just so it is a little bit more clear, and not distracting, right? Great work, but if it's a little bit pixelated, it becomes a little bit hard to see, which, artificially makes it look lower quality. And that'd be a really unfortunate thing for someone to assume it's lower quality just because it's a little bit pixelated. And I'll try to highlight this corner. I guess there's not really a way to point out, but on this bottom, this fields give user full freedom to describe. There is a second pointer at the top corner of it, the top left corner, but it is almost invisible to see. And maybe adding a little bit of contrast to the container tooltip here. Just that little thin pointer is correctly seen pointing to where it's supposed to point.
We can't see your cursor.
right.
Just to remind you, Tim.
I know. It's I don't know how to.
I don't
It's in
really
an image,
see.
so it's here. I'll take a screenshot.
Oh, it's like the cursor in the screenshot, I guess.
It's this little corner fin. It's just in the top of that tooltip, top left of that little tooltip. These fields. There is a pointer there. There's like a
Oh, yeah.
little arrow there that's missing.
Yeah.
It's just hard to see. Very hard to see. Okay. Anyways.
Okay. Cool. If you could scroll down a little bit further. I like the previous and final, and I kind of get the high level, like why things had to change. I'm not going to really dive into like the actual visual design of the project itself. If you go down a little bit further, a little bit more, down to the glasses. Yeah, I can tell. I think that you hadn't worked with the glasses before. And again, this is more of the project, but in the after seizure, so the next section down, like the text is probably super small. Like there are lots of things around the glasses form factor that make me a little bit skeptical about the UI, but that doesn't really matter. That's like more for the project itself and like the iterations you have there. I wanted to talk about this section with the impacting user feedback because I kind of want to know like what tasks you gave the user, because when you say completed all given tasks, I'm like, that's good. Like 93% is a great number, but what were the tasks and how did you make sure that the tasks kind of addressed those initial research insights as well as the goals that you had for your product? Were the goals for your product generally complete tasks and be satisfied, right? Probably there's more depth to that. So make sure that you maybe speak or allude more to the depth here and not just describe.
Yeah. Like I also wasn't sure like what kind of impact or metrics to put here? Because like right now it's just a student project and like it's not gonna be shipped like a real product. So like all of the like metrics that I have is from the usability testing. So yeah, so like I feel like the impact doesn't sound impactful enough, I guess.
I personally think that's okay. And again, I'm coming from the angle of as an interviewer, I'm typically very understanding of student projects. Like you're not shipping everything. I didn't ship anything that I did as a student, right? So again, with the intention, the why, the decision making behind the research, I think that is really important to showcase. And the numbers, I'm like, great, these are good numbers because they help validate the fact that your design solved a problem, but I want to just understand how you validated that the design solved the problem. Yeah.
I want to piggyback off of that, if that's okay. Gailey, I've written down so many things here, so many cool things that you're doing right. I want to skim through them real fast, just so we can focus on some critique here and get you some actionability and some value. But I have to mention the things you're doing well, you are doing particularly well. So for example, the very top of the case study, you've got housekeeping, what we refer to as housekeeping. These shenanigans, timeline role, collaboration, that section, particularly good for recruiters who are trying to match key phrases to that of job descriptions, right? So you're killing it there. Your storytelling in your headers, and actually if Rommel is still on the call, the storytelling that you're depicting in your headers here, if we assume folks aren't reading the content, but they're just reading the headers, they're still gleaning an understanding of your story through the storytelling in your headers, which is solid. Love the impact at the very top. And I also, if Rommel's still on the call, I love the text to image ratio here. And this is a great example of, even though your text often isn't an image, it's still visually differentiating in some fashion from that of the rest of the content. I think this is a great example of the visual aesthetic that we'd be looking for to keep a scrolling, skimmable user attracted to continuing to scroll. I've got a question for you here. In your studies or in your internships, have you ever had conversations about the different frameworks of agile design versus waterfall design? Are those conversations familiar to you?
I've heard about Agile, but I'm not sure about waterfall.
Sure. The reason I'm bringing this up is your case study is leaving out certain portions of the design process, which has advantages and sacrifices. So for example, you go from the problem that you're trying to solve to the designs in which you are solving those problems very quickly. And there are sections that we would typically see in the UX design process that are missing. And you know all these things throughout your studies, probably in your other case studies as well. Things like empathy mapping, how might we, user flows, wireframes, prototyping. The generic UX process is the section that we would typically look for that is missing here. Now, in a waterfall approach, those are all really relevant things. In an agile approach, we would typically argue that those things are less relevant with more of a desire toward testing and iteration. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because if we look at your current case study, the illusion, or rather the omission of those other UX practices, but your inclusion of things like the impact versus value matrix and the stakeholder management portion, these are assets typically more contributing to that of agile environments. And then, so let me pause there. Is your goal to target more agile environments? And if so, those environments typically being found in high enterprise, is that sounding like a desirable career path for you?
Yeah, I'm open to anything, but I also feel like I'm more suitable for like bigger companies, enterprise companies, I guess.
So if the desire and ambition is more enterprise, and if the desire and ambition is toward agile environments, then totally okay to leave out those other UX practices, with the expectation that you would heavily emphasize, circling back to what Athelia was saying, heavily emphasize your testing and iteration. And I love the section that you have here that Athelia was talking about. You've got a couple impacts measurement toward the bottom. Would love to see you like emphasize that even greater. Like, here's the research that we did to validate the direction was appropriate. Here are the conversations that we had. Here are the users that we spoke with, and here are the findings from each individual user. I would love to see that heavily emphasized with the understanding you're targeting agile environments. Athelia, challenge me on any of that. How is that rhetoric sounding to you working at a high enterprise organization?
Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I don't, for someone who's coming in looking for junior roles, I wouldn't necessarily um, know, or I wouldn't expect them to know what agile versus waterfall necessarily are. But like you're saying, there are certain traits that I look for. And so, yes, totally. Like if I see that you're able to work in a specific way with your workflow that aligns a little bit better, I'm more likely to be like, okay, this could be a good fit. I guess conversely, sometimes I'm on lab, so we're very experimental. So I feel like our process is a little different from how I would hire for YouTube. Sometimes we kind of want people who are more like free spirit thinkers because we want that style. So like maybe it depends, but all to say like it's a good job showcasing what you think your skill set is most apt for which kind of company you think you'll be more apt for as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It is a very overall, I would say this is a very mature looking case study. And it has at least all the right sections. If you were in an interview, I do think you'd have to explain some things a little bit more, which I think you're probably prepared to do. And Ira's opportunity would be including a little bit more process and validating, or not validating, but like qualifying. Why does this matter? If you're saying 93% of people complete all the given tasks and we're satisfied with the app design functionality, well, if you can qualify this and tell me why this actually does matter, that might increase your qualifications here. But thank you, Gailey, for your time today, and we're grateful that you've shared again and to see you back. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for all the feedback today.
Tim, next
absolutely.
on the list, we've got kayliediep. I'm sorry, we just talked with Gailey. Next, we've got India. Now, I want to mention to the chat here, we're at the top of the hour mark. We have gone through 2 folks today, so we're going a little bit more slowly today, which is expected, having 3 of us instead of 2. So we likely have time for 2 others, which will include India and Ricardo, maybe a third. Caroline, if you're out there, you're going to be a real if. But for Ignacio, Jen, and June, very likely won't be able to get to you today unless somebody doesn't show up. So I'm so sorry, but would love to see you in additional Fridays. We do this every Friday from 11 to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. India, welcome.
Hi.
Welcome, India. We're happy to have you here. The typical flow for these things is I will ask you a little bit about who you are and to share some of your particular goals. And that will help us decide how best to support feedback, with the goal being that we're collaborative and not necessarily like doing a roast. I know some people like the word roast. I just don't like the word roast. Roast is a little bit dry, and we want to be friendly and fun and more like a donut, we call these donut sessions or something. I don't know. But India, if you'll go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are, what kind of design you might participate in, and then how we can help you right now.
So my name is India, and I actually have a scientific background, but I feel like I'm currently like in a period of transitioning into design, like potentially like for in a more professional way. I volunteer with a local organization that I'm passionate about, but and I do some design work for them too, and research. And yeah, my design work is mostly digital illustration based infographics and posters that I try to communicate like meaningful messages with. And sorry, I'm quite nervous. And I think that a lot of my design work typically starts at a point of like curiosity, and then I like deep dive into a subject area. Sometimes write a blog, and then like the design is like born following that process. And I feel like this process works for both scientific topics and more conceptual fictional topics too.
That is a very cool intersection. And as Indy and I have talked before this as well, just casually about stuff. And I am also a science person, so I love a good science writer and good science topics. India, specifically today, what are maybe some of the goals that we could support with you? Whether are you curious about like website design? Are you curious about framing for yourself? Maybe what is even the overall goal for your website, would you say?
Um, I think the overall goal for my website is to showcase like my work in the portfolio section, um, and like um, I just would like to gain some clarity and direction on where I should take it next. Because I'm, like I said, I'm not trained in design, but I would like to change direction.
Okay. Okay, very cool. Well, Nate, this might be a good opportunity for us to talk about what portfolios do. I'd also be curious to see what Athelia's perspective is on like building a portfolio and like what your portfolio checklist, your pre-flight checklist might look like. What do you think?
I would love that idea. Let me ask a quick clarifying question. I may have missed it, India. What was your target job title that you were looking for?
So maybe like entry, or some kind of like beginner role, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. In graphic design, or illustration.
Entry level graphic design illustration. Got it.
Yeah.
Athelia, well, I don't know what your background here is on the artistic side of the design thing. If I were to speak for Tim and I, India, we don't have expertise in the more creative portion of design, and therefore our ability to provide you any feedback here will be constrained by our own limitations, not our typical source of expertise. So we can talk about some high level stuff, but we'll probably not be able to get real specific. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, great. Athelia, how's your creative background?
I did go to design school, but I also I went to design school for college, right, for university. But before that, I thought I was going to be in computer science for sure. Everything was very targeted towards that, maths, physics, all of that. Um, so I guess all to say, I take more of like a systematic lens to design. That's kind of how I describe myself, a little bit more logical. But that being said, I was around a lot of I was in an art college, so I saw a lot of work around graphic design and medical illustration, which is actually what I'm picking up a little bit more of in your work, India. So beyond just work like finding a junior role in graphic design? Were there also certain spaces? Was it specifically the medical field that you wanted to make infographics for? I mean, this is pretty specific, but I think there's something to having a niche, especially if you're very passionate about that niche. Is that the right read here?
Yeah, definitely. I love like illustrating scientific art and medical art. I have recently got more into just experimenting with like more fictional stuff like characters and such. But I think that's more just a way of like exploring different creative niches. But um, yeah, definitely like more scientific illustration.
Mhm. Awesome. I think I want to kick it off first by saying that it's really interesting seeing your portfolio because it's very new to see for me to see portfolios where you uh, you've organized it in a way that I find very refreshing. And maybe it's because a lot of portfolios, like product design portfolios, feel very similar. So I actually really appreciate how you've like sectioned out the anatomy diaries as like a theme and like explorations as a theme, your voluntary work as a theme. I think that's really interesting. I haven't seen that before. Um, I think given it's going to be an interesting balance. I also really like that you've published like what looks like blog posts and articles. I like that's
Yeah.
it speaks to your background. Um, if you're looking for a more visual role, I think it would be very beneficial to lean into the visuals and the artwork that you're making.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I say that is it's nice having your hero within talks, but I'm curious about like how we can make it even more visual and speak to the style and the things that you like to draw. Um, right up front. The first
Yeah.
thing I see are the featured articles, and so that tells me, oh, maybe you're interested in writing more articles, not necessarily so much that you want to work on artwork.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So it's kind of like how do you
Yeah.
shape that narrative, yeah, to what you want to be working on?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Thank you.
Tim, I'm looking at the portfolio. We typically talk about target audiences and the goals of case studies and that sort. I'm thinking if the goal is to focus on like what's the most important thing we can work on here, I'm kind of thinking the technical constraints of this portfolio might be number one. India, help constrain me here. What application did you build this in?
So I didn't build the website. My friend built it for me. I am not a programmer. I don't know how they built it, but he's a web dev, and I just do it all through him. And he built me like a little CMS system so that I can upload like the content that
Custom
way.
CMS, cool. I really like where Athelia's mind is at here. So if I were to poorly repeat what Athelia was describing, I would say I love the direction of focusing on your differentiation, particularly for both your niche as well as your skill level and skill capabilities. My fear is that your current technical solution is going to hold you back slightly. And I'd love to find a way where you can embrace your portfolio to a degree beyond that of your current technical constraints. And we have typical solutions out there. Tim and I talk about Framer a bunch. There are plenty others, Squarespace, Webflow. There's also the world of AI, which is exploding now, and Tim and I are both heading that direction. But I'm fearful that the technical constraint here is going to be your larger obstacle. How are you, gut check me on that, India? How are you feeling about that?
I'm not sure. I think it's something I'd have to have a think about because, like I said, I'm not. I mean, I like the website that I have now, but I'm happy to do things through my friend, and they're happy with that way too. Like when something needs like a feature update on the website and he needs to change it, he's happy to do that. But I can understand what you're saying. Like if I were to be able to just do that myself with a simple solution, like say Framer or some other kind of yeah.
Athelia.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, India. I think part of the challenge that we're going to face is that the structure of your website may not lead people to understand the purpose of your website. Because when we land here at Indie Talks, this is set up very much like a blog, right? You have your featured articles. So we're missing your featured portfolio pieces. And it is kind of like a little bit of a secondary item up here that people may not know to go look for. Now, of course, you could be sharing this link directly, right? You could just share /portfolio and that's fine. But you'll notice that even like getting in here, I click in here, I have to kind of dig a little bit to get into this. And then even here, you're kind of constrained by the layout of these PDFs. Now, PDFs are super powerful. And I absolutely think you should have these PDFs available. But for example, your website might benefit if instead of having to go into the PDF here, I might be able to scroll down the page, right? And you might have like some more interactive components of like here's like the first sketch, second sketch, third sketch, fourth sketch, and kind of like being able to really go over this in more detail and kind of annotate this for us and showing your process. And I think that is probably the benefit of being able to design the website yourself is that you understand exactly the right framework for telling this. You understand and you own each part of this. So that kind of enables you. At the same time, I am also super sympathetic that like PDF upload is like, if you can do PDF upload, that's like super powerful. And I have a hard time just because you're already acknowledging that like what you're good at is here, not necessarily here. So you want to control what you have to be good at so you can be good at the one thing you want to do versus being good at the website part too. Especially when you have something that is like commenting and etc. available on your website right now. I think it's just about maybe the framing of your website that is set up much more like a blog and a person of interest versus someone who's looking for partnerships, and that could be the style and formatting of your website. That's kind of my read on that, and my caveat to what Nate is saying here.
Yeah, I tend
Okay.
to agree. I think because of the presentation, it doesn't feel as visual as what it could look like coming from a designer. So I think there are ways around it. If you're comfortable working in this kind of PDF slide by slide format, Behance is a really good place to do that. Yes, it is where I started as a student, but Behance connects to my portfolio, which is also a way to kind of very easily put together a portfolio that looks like your own space, which is really nice. And so you can have this slide by slide kind of look. I can show you an example if you'd really like of how I'd done it before.
Hmm.
And it just is a better scroll through like a designer's website.
Okay.
And also easy to use, which is really what we want to anchor for.
I will say, Athelia, we have a habit of smack talking Behance a lot on
Oh, I'm
in
so
our
sorry.
feedback Friday sessions. We have a couple of and that's because we'll showcase right now. Just the thing to watch out for with Behance is that Behance secretly wants you to go do other stuff. They'll advertise other designers. They want you to sign up for them. Uh, Sometimes you might have like a CTA that you can dismiss. And so just watch out for that. You know, a Behance is a great place to showcase work, but they also have a goal of getting you to stay on their website versus exploring who you are. And so we smack talk them a little bit.
And Tim,
But
That is totally fair.
we're typically talking with product designers. And if your target was product design, I have more qualms against Behance. But if your goal is graphic design, a lot of those qualms of mine go away.
Okay. I'll take a look at it.
yeah,
It's worth
we might
taking a
need to
look.
repent.
Test all of
So
these. No, no, not at all. It's very, it makes a lot of sense. So if it helps, like take a look through my old Behance and see how I've like put each slide as a different piece. You just play around with it. I think Behance is free. Yeah, so like that is just video. These are like I made these in Illustrator. They're just slides. And so instead of being constrained to that little window, if you like the slides presentation, you can at least show like slide after slide after slide in a scroll. And it's a way that like other designers are also looking on Behance. You can connect it to my portfolio, like I said. Yes, it's kind of very Adobe forward, but hey,
I
it's
think this looks
one
great.
option that you have. No, thanks.
India, how are you feeling? We might be at a place where, in regard to at least Tim and I can speak for us too. Athelia, I don't know about you. In regard to our capability to provide you feedback, we might be at a part where it's a good time to transition to the next one. How are you feeling so far?
Yeah, it feels okay. Yeah.
India, really appreciate. Oh, Tim, it looks like you've got a last bit of feedback. I see it.
that's actually me reaching for the unmute mute button. But if anything, what I might recommend is instead of having a hero image and an embed PDF here, you might just want to figure out if you can do something to widen this viewport to make this a little bit bigger so it kind of emulates a little bit of this, and kind of tinkering with the default settings here. Because by default, when you open this, it is already like it's zoomed out. It's not fully attached. There are buttons that you can use to fit the page that already improve the experience just a tiny bit. So there might be some ways, there might be some small wins, I guess, that you could do that might help improve this experience. Or even if you just want to do something like adding some written work here, right? So you add a little bit of like description or things in here that help us to get some context before we have to go search this whole thing.
Yep.
But the work itself is really cool,
Thank you.
and I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome work. So hopefully we can get. Hopefully you've found some value in today, and
Yeah,
you'll be able
definitely.
to move your goals along, especially with just at least featuring some of your work here. Right. Number one goal is see the work that you do, not necessarily the words that you write. Although the words you write are important. And I will note when you click on these, they start halfway through the page.
Oh,
Um, So if I click on this, I'm already scrolled a little bit. And I'm assuming that's a scroll state saved. You can see here, I'm partially scrolled down your screen. And it looks like it's just saving the scroll position instead of resetting scroll position. So that's just a technical thing you might share some feedback about.
Okay. Thank you.
India, really appreciate
Thanks, India.
the time and you being willing to hang out with us today. Next on the list is Ricardo. Now, Athelia, I understand you're hanging out with us for a lovely amount of time today. You're actually even like deeper in the time that I thought you were able. How is your clock looking so far? Are you able to hang out with us a bit more, or is now a good parting ways time?
Now is actually a good parting ways. If I'm so sorry, Tim. If Tim
I'll never
wants me to
forgive you.
stay for 15 minutes, I can't. I'm already I'm skipping half a meeting for this.
Oh, so we're saving you. Okay, yeah, in that case, this is a rescue. We'll do this one a little faster. Ricardo, with that in mind, we'll hand off to Philia. But if you'll go ahead and introduce, I've seen
Hi
you in the
guys.
chat quite a bit, so I'm happy to see you finally joining us on the stage. Tell us who you are.
Of course. Thank you for making the time. I want to use this well, so I'll be direct. I'm validating if my portfolio is ready for product design roles at this kind of junior mid level. And that's pretty much the question I need to be answered in this feedback. I've been iterating my portfolio since joining Design Bodies on October, and I would love to get feedback from you all. And I found your advice super valuable, so thank you very much.
All right, I just wanted to clarify, Ricardo, you're looking for a product design role, or because I saw on your homepage it says design and engineering.
Yeah, and it could be a product design or UX engineering. I've seen that it's been evolving the roles a bit.
Okay, I think that'll just help me calibrate like how I give feedback. I clicked into your first like case study, and my first thought is like there are really interesting things here. Things like accordions, like showing a lot of visual ways of boxing and grouping things. But my first thought was this is a ton of text. Even if it's well boxed and everything, it's so much text to read through that I'm gonna have trouble like grappling really where you think the key takeaways that I should have, where those will be. So yeah, that's my first gut feeling. And now I'm gonna actually read all the text.
Athelia, I got a question for you. So when it comes to targeting specific titles, Tim and I typically recommend, well, let's target either UX engineering and build a portfolio around that. Let's target product design, build a portfolio around that. But the challenge and the friction in my mind now is with the explosion of AI in the design space, I'm contemplating if there's now a desire for like UX engineering or UX, like more coded oriented UXs. Is that a title that's like we're now looking for in large organizations?
I don't know that really big organizations will have changed the titles just yet, but I think the expectation with the job description might have shifted. I haven't seen a ton of like the design roles coming out of Google say explicitly like you must be AI native in design. I haven't seen that yet. But to be tactical for Ricardo, I think what your challenge is to express in these case studies is how you can bridge the two more clearly and like have the design thinking, be able to like narrate and speak to the design thinking work, as well as talk about how you would apply that in a prototyping sense. The way AI has affected my process, at least, and my workflow has been very varied because I'm still testing things out. Tools change all the time. So I could be interested in hearing about like a tool that you made in order to help you prototype or like better understand the output from X, Y, and Z. From that all the way up to like I was able to code this entire back end in addition to my front end because I was enabled by these tools. So it can really vary, and it's a world that keeps changing. I don't know if I really answered your question, but I guess I had thoughts.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah,
I
maybe
have some
that.
visuals. I have some visual suggestions I'll give you. Just to let you know that I do have them. I just want Ophelia to get through her feedback first, and then we'll do some visual stuff.
Why don't you start doing that? Because I'm going to try to read through this quickly.
Gotcha. So one thing I'm seeing is we have a. So I don't want to, again, I don't mean this as a dismissal or anything. It does have some elements of it that look vibe coded, and I think that's okay. That is appropriate for people who are in the UX product engineering space specifically to show proficiency with those kinds of tools. But there are a couple areas that probably need just a little bit of refinement. One thing that's happening is we have certain animations that are just a little bit too, they're a little bit too much. Sometimes less animation is more animation. And so, for example, like working with this, like having the raise and the zoom at the same time, and the hover and the border state and the separation here for the arrows, that is a lot of interaction happening at the same time. And I'm just not sure if it is the right level of intentionality for it to not be a little bit off-putting. Another thing happening is that you have images here. These images are very much a motion setting versus function setting. And I would prefer to see more function or utility rather than a motion setting in this, so it doesn't feel like marketing, and instead it feels like work done. We also are going to see kind of in a lot of places, you have lots of lines happening. I actually think you should take this line grid, and I don't know if I could do this, but like I think you should increase the level of 3D more. Like I think it should be, if it's at an angle, I think you should make the angle even more. Like I think this should disappear a little bit faster. If you know what I'm talking about, where it's like if you were
Yeah,
to lean
like
it back a little bit more.
more plain, like in the Tron movie.
Yeah, even more planar than it already is. And I think that'll just help with the distance feeling that you're getting here. There's a couple places, and I'm trying to figure out, you may need to adjust some of your border radiuses. You have like very strong curve, even though we have grids. So you have lots of grids, lots of lines, lots of boxes, but then we also have lots of curves, lots of border radii. And I think that in some places, the level of border radius doesn't really match the aesthetic sometimes. For example, you have these perfect pill buttons, and then this is like, it just doesn't quite feel like the right proportion here. But also you'll see that you have like 32 here for your border radius. And then here is, I think also, this is 24, but your gap here is not sufficient to justify this internal. There's like a rule for how you use border radii. So you're just going to make sure that you follow the mechanism systems. The border radius, if anything internal, should be the external minus the padding, or is it plus the padding? There's a rule for it. You'll need to go look it up, but it helps you achieve a little bit more visually aesthetic internal border radii. And I think that will help with just the visuals here, so that way they're not distracting, which they kind of, in some places they can be a little bit distracting versus additive. For example, coming over here, like looking at this key results, you have like a strong line here, right? It's a very like sharp line, and this gets very soft. And then even inside, you have a hover state here. You have an affordance for hover, even though there's no interaction here. So this affordance is, I think, probably the wrong thing to have here. You don't really typically animate things that don't have actual interaction. Additionally, one last thing before I turn back to Thalia, see if she's ready, is you have scroll options here. I don't think you really need these scroll things. They also are messy. They create a little bit of noise in places, right? When I already know to scroll, I don't really need a reminder to scroll here. I think there might be some places where the interaction, the background might parallax, or, like for example, it's just a little bit less obvious that you need to scroll. But for a hero section like this on a portfolio page where it clearly sets up as a hero, I think the reminder to scroll is unneeded here.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome.
Celia, you're up.
I'll take it. Okay. Okay, so I actually left this case study because I didn't see any actual design. And maybe that was the point, because I hit work. Like, yes, I see the visuals, but I still don't actually know what you made. And maybe that's on me for not like finding it. but
Yeah.
I couldn't find the PWA that you were designing for. So I just hit back to projects and realized that you had tagged this one as product strategy, the hackathon. Yeah, this one, the first one was product strategy. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna get
Oh,
another one.
there's tags there that don't exist on the homepage. Oh well,
Yeah.
kind of. It's here with the +1 button, and this has a more affordance. So these are affordances that would suggest you could click here to see what other product strategies there might be, or
Mhm.
you click here to see what other labels there are. And instead, it just opens the project. So they're
Okay.
Yeah. And the reason I kind of wanted to jump elsewhere, given that the highest tag you have was product strategy, is because I was like, I don't really see much product design. So I went to the second one, reducing cognitive load and high density fleet monitoring. And these do sound very technical. They sound like, okay, there was an intention here. Again, my problem was in the text. Like, this is not really a skimmable case study for me. It does read like AI did help you a lot with the content, which is totally fine and fair. Like we all use AI in our processes, but I think after using AI to like help you either summarize or like organize things, it's also a really good exercise to like walk through the results and see where you want to cut, curate, and all of that because there's a lot to read through. The text is quite small and I'm already thinking about how I would possibly read this on mobile. The answer is I wouldn't. There would be just way too much text on mobile to even attempt. Like this, I don't, I don't even read like newspaper articles unless I'm super invested. Like, um, so I think it's just a lot to like look through. So that's like one big overarching piece of feedback. My second overarching piece of feedback is that this isn't very visual. So if you wanted product design roles, I would really struggle to like identify you as a candidate for it. On this page, you have a design decisions section. And you do actually speak to sans serif with strong hierarchy, dark mode with semantic red alerts, um, visual hierarchy, things like that. And I'm like, oh, but I kind of want to see that. Like, how did you, is there a before and after? Was there a testing to see like, oh, this sans serif was not good enough because of these reasons? Like, can you articulate me the goals and the user base and therefore why it's important to like have clean sans serif with really strong hierarchy, really strong contrast, for people who are working on a fleet of vehicles, you probably don't want to spend a lot of time trying to like digest what you're reading. Or, I mean, digest what you're reading, but it has to be really easy to read. Is that why you chose a sans serif? I don't hear any of that necessarily, but I do see that these are validated, like as appropriate for operational monitoring context. So help me, help me with the story here. Help me understand maybe more of the how you approached the design portion as well as the engineering portion, because that part it seems like you could do. And then you go into visuals and you have a smattering of visuals here. And then my question, because you said you wanted product design roles as well, was wait, why are the visuals so far at the bottom and why don't I know anything about what led to these visuals? So like, is there a reason you had this dashboard system with the left rails and the right rails? Are things collapsible? Is there a reason that you had like the modules that you have on the maps, things like that? I'm like, that is what I want to know because I didn't have any sense of why these design decisions were made. So I guess all to say, really think about the person who might be reading this. If you say that you want to do product design, you can expect that a design hiring manager or a design recruiter is going to be looking at this. And if they can't answer certain questions or find answers to certain baseline things like, do they know how to use a design system, depending on the role and things like that, then you make yourself less of a compelling candidate. Okay, I've rambled a lot.
These are
A
great
lot of
call outs.
useful tips. Thank you, Ethilia. I will upgrade my portfolio on that. And yeah, I totally need to be more clarifying on my design decisions. Um, Maybe it wasn't clear that I have a button up there like view demo, and you can check the actual demo of the project.
Oh,
So
So
yeah,
if you have to explain it,
yeah,
it's not correct, right? That is a
yeah.
product. That's a portfolio rule. So if you have to be in the room for this to work, it doesn't work. So this button for view demo may be the wrong affordance for a demo button. So if you wanted this, you may need to include this as like a hero button, right? Like put it
Okay.
somewhere down here beneath this as like an actual video. So that way the affordance for knowing I'm about to click a video makes a little bit more sense. You also have a play button down here. I expected this to play a demo. It just plays music. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm also
That's it's kind of
Get your jams on.
I mean, it's
a
kind of
music
cool.
producer, so I've also made music.
I don't mind it. It's kind of cool. It's
super
got
cool.
some like good synths in here. I would love a good playlist by you.
Like to get
I
immersed in the portfolio.
yeah, really feel the hero sense of it. I think Ethelia's absolutely right. The divorce here between your visuals and your content is probably not going to serve you at all, because you want to separate these. I don't, it's flashing now. You do want to have a sort of you want to pace people, right? You want to show them enough text information for them to think about, and then visuals that help them understand what they're thinking about. And you have to kind of do this in layers, so that way they understand pieces of your project at a time. And doing all the text, then all the visuals, creates a huge divide between like what they're reading and what they should be looking at, and I think diminishes your power to explain certain things. And again, you'll probably, because these are images, you probably actually don't want a quarter radius here at all, because this makes them look like card components versus true images, like a gallery. So you may not want to have any rounding here at all, actually.
Can I hop in
I
there?
just like to yes and. There's nothing that Athelia said I disagree with.
I want to further yes and Athelia, and I want to take this a direction. So Ricardo, if there's any, typically we focus on what are the top 3 things that my portfolio needs that we could then work on. For you, it's just the top one thing, and that is making your case study legible and consumable in some fashion. And the overarching consensus so far is that the ability to storytell is largely the missing element, and that storytelling including imagery and some sort of visual assets along with it. Tim, I want to take over the screen share for a second. Ricardo, I want to show you something. Now, you've been in our chat for a long time here. Have you seen us talk about Notebook LM before?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm going to show it to you either way. So, Tim, you mind if I take over the screen share?
Please do, Nate.
I'm taking over. There's a notebook. There's a utility called Notebook LM. This is in Athelia's world, kind of. This is a Google product. Athelia, how familiar are you with Notebook LM?
Very. My team worked on the book.
Very cool. So the source of truth. Ricardo, what Notebook LM does is essentially takes the data, you take all your data, host it in one place, and then you can utilize an AI to generate assets and do research on just the data that's been trained. So what I've done here is I've just sent a link to your case study into Notebook LM, and all I did was select the generate a slide deck button. Now, what's fascinating about this is Google's attempt to retell the case study that you're attempting to tell. Now, you will notice the imagery is all fabricated. It's AI generated. More or less, you can ignore it. But what I really want you to focus on is how this utility is attempting to tell the story. What you have in your case study is a phenomenal first draft. You have written down all the things you need to write down, and now the goal is, can we hone this? Can we refine this in a way that specifically tells the story that you're wanting and get rid of all the fluff, of which it feels like there is much? So check this out. Reducing cognitive load and high-density fleet monitoring. I'm just going to skip ahead to the couple of slides here. The cost of cognitive overload, and it breaks down into sections. The paradigm shift, decisions over data. And you can see it's choosing to tell a story here that is already more engaging to that of the reader. The humans in the loop, target personas working 5 to 8 hour shifts in a 24/7 monitoring centers. Like now it's talking about personas. This is a thing that I did not glean from your case study previously. So in regard to iteration, this is a phenomenal utility for enabling you to like quickly iterate and hone in and craft that story that you're wanting to tell. And this is, I think, the largest missing piece from your case study so far. Athelia, what's your feedback on that tactic?
I think it's a good tactic. And I also have to go now.
Athelia, really appreciate you hanging out with us today.
Thank you so
for your
much for
time.
having me, and sorry for doing like this. This is really, it's good work, Ricardo. You have a lot of information and clearly you've done work, right? So now it is about how you pull it all together in a good story. Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Delia,
Thank you
we
and have a
appreciate your
good
time so much today. You are free to go. We appreciate you. If you're ever wanting to come back on, you're welcome back. And if there's any good feedback, guys, that you have from Athelia, please add her in the chat. Just let her know that you appreciated her feedback. If you've heard anything insightful, let her know. And we'll see you around.
Athelia, any final plugs?
Yeah, thanks. None from me. Keep using Google Lab stuff.
I cannot believe you're name dropping yourself for Notebook LM and then leaving immediately. This is insane.
Bye.
Take care, Athelia. Ricardo, Notebook LM, totally free utility to use. I think they do limit you to like 3 generations a day or something like that.
Athelia apparently helped design, which is crazy.
That's wild. Yeah. Ricardo, how are you feeling about this tactic? Do you feel like you can potentially dive into Notebook LM? This is just one generation. It will generate different versions every time you hit the slideshow button. You feel like you can use this and try to iterate your current storytelling?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm gonna use that Notebook LM2. Looks super great.
God, it's such a cool tool, man. I have used this frequently for my own storytelling. Ricardo, really appreciate you hanging out with us today. After all these months, you hanging out in the chat with us, we finally get to speak with you directly, and I'm so excited we got a chance to talk.
Yeah. Thank you for your words.
Yeah.
I will update my portfolio.
Appreciate you. Tim.
Yeah, and I would just say again, one thing you're gonna want to watch out for is I do love the clean aesthetic, like this clean modern aesthetic. I do feel to say though that I feel like this might be like one of the generic styles that Cloud Code can output. So just maybe watching out for, since this is a vibe code website, you will have to be particularly good about avoiding the problems that come with it. So like, for example, the hover state interactions that don't exist, getting your corners just right. Like you were gonna have to be extra on it. And especially for affordances that shouldn't exist. For example, you think about this, where if I'm most likely to click a project here, if I click a project here and I want to go back to projects, you have to think about, where am I going back to? I'm not actually going back to projects. I'm now going to a new page that I haven't been to. And so you're going to have to be extra careful to think about this flow and making sure things make sense, since that, and also looking out for affordances that look good at first, right? It's like this tag system looks good. It makes sense. There's a +10 here. I would think to click on that +10, and instead it is a whole button here. So just kind of watch out for stuff. Be really extra vigilant. Again, nothing wrong. We'll say that there are probably some things wrong, but for the most part, using vibe coding tools to build your website does fall under the purview of product and designer stuff. So that's okay. Just making sure that the affordances are correct and then the organization of information makes sense, which, as Nate said, Notebook LM will help you quickly construct a pretty good outline and narrative arc to follow. Although, as you saw from Nate, if you implement those exact visuals, you're probably going to be in hot water too. So, use intelligently.
Okay. Yeah, I will do.
Next on the list, Tim, we've got carolinehowdavid. This will be the last one we have a time to review today. While Carolyn's coming up on stage, AI, vibe coded websites, so cool. Tim and I are Tim has already transitioned to vibe coded his site. I am currently in the midst of doing that myself. Big fans of product design and AI being utilized in the product design space.
There are concerns with it though, just so people know. Like there are certain things you have to learn to use, and there's other things that you have to avoid endorsing. And so it's a complicated topic, and we wouldn't hold it against anyone who chooses to not use that or abstain. especially people who feel a little bit fearful of it. Also completely understand where you're coming from. And if you'd like to chat about that, we can absolutely make it a topic to discuss and kind of work through and massage those feelings out. Carolyn.
Hello.
Caroline?
Caroline.
Tell us, Caroline. Hello, Caroline. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what your goals are.
Hello. So yes, I am a recent graduate from UCI, approaching a year since graduation. I think currently I'm still trying to land some entry-level full-time roles. I have had some experience with freelancing and working with smaller companies and startups, but I think I'm want to take a step further to really try and get my portfolio out there or just get some feedback on it, just so I can start trying to land some more full-time roles. Yeah.
Okay. Full-time roles. Product
And then
designer.
related to, yes, product design or UX UI, something within that field.
Okay.
Did I hear
That's
you were a
good.
recent grad?
Oh, what was that again?
Did I hear you just recently graduated?
I graduated June 2025, so I am like nearing towards a year since graduation. So not as recent, but still recent-ish.
Still incredible. What was your degree in?
I studied informatics with a specialization in human-computer interaction.
Wow. You have practiced that answer.
Did
It
you?
is a good answer. It's a good answer, but you were like ready with that answer right off the top.
I'm unfamiliar with the term informatics. Is there a single sentence definition you've got that you're able to share?
I'd say with informatics, it's a mix of both computer science principles. So I do have experience with some code, along with a lot of design principles, a bit of psychology within there. So yeah.
Neat. Well positioned for the product design space. That's great.
Okay. Let's start with, well, do you want us to go through like aesthetic and positioning of your website, or do you want us to go into a case study?
I think within case study could be good.
Okay. Good titles already. And there's our video affordance with a skip to features and results button for people who just want to get there quickly. And there is a back button for that. Well played. Nate, do you have a place you want to start with this, or should we just start sharing some insights as we go?
You know, I don't have a quick answer for you. Carolyn, where my mind is at is typically Tim and I our goals are to focus on like what are the top 3 things we can talk about to make you actionable. And then from there, we can talk again and work on the next 3 things. Our goal is typically not to talk about all the possible things we could work on. Now, I tend to talk more about I went to college for marketing. My background is more deeply within marketing and positioning, though I'm currently working at a Fortune 25 in product design. So when it comes to like the higher elevation things, that's typically where I linger. Now, I'm looking at your case study. You're doing a lot of things correctly. You're doing a lot of things well. For me, I think probably the higher priority on the list is probably more on the UI side, which is not usually a place where I reside. Tim, I'm thinking we potentially talk about some UI constraints. Gut check me. How are you feeling about that?
There are definitely some UI things I'd like to talk about. I do want to make sure, though, that when we're talking about case studies and portfolios, I'd like to call out that sometimes the written words is more powerful than the aesthetic of your website. So if you are in a position where you're not sure what to do, you're not sure why your portfolio is not working, evaluating the words you're using is often higher yield than redesigning the whole shape and look of your website. Because looks are based on trends, but the words communicate value for a much longer amount of time and typically speak to people a little bit more, especially in a world where AI is crawling people's websites. AI does not have a very good taste measure, right? It thinks certain things look good when they don't. thinks other things might look bad when they shouldn't. It's very biased, but the words it writes, it can still show up in summaries and stuff, and that can be powerful for persuading even our AI conspirators, whatever we want to call them. There are a couple of visual rules, though, that we can apply across your website that may support and help you tell a more effective story, or at least be a little bit less distracting for the main story. And I think that's probably what Nate is talking about, is making sure that the visuals don't detract from the narrative experience that you're driving towards. Is that correct?
Sounding right to me, yeah.
Okay. So one thing I'm going to notice right away is that we have a lot of margins going on. Hero section. In a hero section, let me get this open. In a hero section, I do expect the margins rule to always be broken, and I think that's fine. And we see that we have consistent margins here. That's okay. I am noticing different styles though. We've got this has an upper shadow to kind of create like a bezeled effect. This image does not have that, and that's kind of that's a little interesting. We also have different typography. So we have this as like your top thing, create the space, develop for good. And it kind of has like a bento layout happening here. And then there's these buttons on this side. I think they're buttons, or are they just images that hover? But there's kind of a lot happening here. I'm not sure necessarily where to look. I also am worried that this white does not pass contrast on this yellow. I'll give this piece of feedback, and I only want to get one time because I always go back and forth. I, as a person, do not like reading text on a warm background this strong. So I'm going to try not to let that bias me, but it's just such a strong color. Like, it's very loud. I would prefer if this color was a little bit less intense, because I am just in that boat where I prefer a little less. So even something that's just a little more subtle, where it's still not perfect white, is fine. And then if you wanted to, you could use this as a space to have that maybe more intense color for the accent pieces, because I know that that's what you're driving towards, is something that feels on theme for your website, right? Making the cards have the accent color rather than the entire background have the accent color, I think is a stronger visual pattern. It's a little bit less punishing for reading text as well. That's my opinion though, and some people will disagree with that. I think that's okay. But for me, this is a little bit easier to read and look at than this. I would oh no, where'd it go? I just reloaded the page instead of creating a duplicate. Nice. Okay. Well, what is happening? So yeah, I'd watch out for that. It's just a background thing I'd kind of watch out for. We do have multiple margins, like I said, though, is that you have a margin here. This text is a little too wide. You're at 935 here. Text does get wider. This is 1,000 pixels wide. Our general rule that we're going to see across people is across places is around 800. There's kind of like a visual rule. You can look at this website for more information. It's not pixel rule. It is a visual rule. So you see here, like the visual, it's a visual thing for about how long you can go. So for standard text, for body text, around 75 characters is the right way. But it's about like the size visually of text on a screen, because people don't want to, they don't have to move their head too much, and it just kind of gets a little bit difficult. So we'd be looking for that to kind of watch out for. And then you have this image is at a different margin than oh no, it's just moving the whole image on the inside. Well, I think you know what I mean. You'd want your margins to be very similar. It's okay for images to sometimes be a little bit inset, and so I don't think that's a huge crime. Like, you haven't committed an atrocity, or whatever you might want to say here, by having this. But I do think I think that if we're going to go for a left aligned text, which I think is the right choice here, and you've already done your hero image up here, having this be a little bit bigger, that's okay. I think that's fine. I think it's okay, especially when you get a little bit bigger here. So that's my early feedback. Nate, did you have specific feedback you wanted to go, or should we continue in this direction?
I do have a couple of things here, and I'm trying to figure out how to best word it. And the fear that I have here, Carolyn, is that how to describe this? Tim and I attempt to be as objective as possible. One of the reasons I steer away from talking about the design and aesthetics of things is because it oftentimes dives pretty heavily into, oh, I like this, I don't like this. And that's subjective reasoning that is just not valuable for calls like this. Everybody has different taste. So what I'm meaning to describe now is, if I were to attempt to lean more objectively, the aesthetics of your current site are reminiscent to that of older design trends. And I'm fearful that those older design trends are going to potentially bias folks looking at your site and thinking that your taste and skill set is leaning more toward dated actionability. For example, the tabs that you have at the top of your site and the top of some sections, these are fairly classic aesthetic tabs. Used to see these 15 years ago, somewhere in there. The color palette's dedicated more toward browns and beiges, an older fashioned design aesthetic. So that's where my mind is currently at. Regardless of taste, I'm fearful that folks that view the site are associated with the older trends. Therefore, you're not presenting yourself as a modern candidate. Let me pause there. Is that making sense? Am I wording that appropriately?
Well, to me, I think it makes sense, yeah.
Tim, how are you feeling about that feedback?
Yeah. So the way I would phrase it a little bit differently. So the thing is that when you're using familiar patterns, like tabs is a familiar pattern to us, right? You have to think about, where do people see this most often? Like, where's the most common context for this? And it is very likely that people will be reading this inside of a web browser. Like, it could be Chrome, it could be Dia, it could be anywhere, right? But they probably have tabs up here that are similar. So your tabs will compete with their tabs. And so you'll have to be careful to make sure that when it comes to push to shove, you want your tabs to be a little bit more pretty, right? You want your tabs to not like feel weird or stand out. And as you look here, you can probably see that some tabs will look more refined than other tabs. And I think you're probably in a spot where these feel a little bit more brute force rather than refined. Right. So like the curve is a little bit different, maybe missing the like blend in kind of feeling here. There could be like some spacing subtleties here, maybe like size of the text or the type of animation, maybe that it's all caps. It's hard to tell. Everyone has their own aesthetic. Everyone will have their own aesthetic, but just keep in mind that these tabs will compete very likely with these tabs. And if you're not confident that these tabs are the 100% more beautiful tabs, people may have an adverse reaction to those tabs. They may, instead of using them as navigation, see them as a design artifact that reflects the quality of your skill, which may be an incorrect assumption, because the quality of your skill might just be limited here by the platform that you're on. That is how I would word that, Nate.
There are other, if we were to steer away from aesthetics for a second, there are a couple of items in the case study that I might be interested in seeing. For example, a case study is typically looking to answer 3 questions. Question 1 is, what's the problem you're trying to solve? 2 is, how did you go about solving that problem? And then 3 is, how did you validate success that the problem was in fact solved? Now, if I'm looking at your case study, we've got a context at the top, but I don't know that I'm fully understanding what the problem is. And it's the very first section that I'm looking to have answered. And I cannot gauge the rest of your case study until I understand what that problem is. So we can potentially draw more light to wherever that. Do you have that written down somewhere, Carolyn?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure scrolling a bit more, there should be at least like a problem statement showing more of the project scope. Yeah, I think that whole like top section is just dedicated towards kind of like how we went about solving the problem. But I see what you mean. There's not like a very like dedicated space with just the problem.
Tim, well, I'm seeing the animation bug on your side as well. I'm also seeing that our color palettes are, have you been messing with the color palette?
I have been messing with the color palette.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, totally with you, Carolyn. So the how do we design a minimalist, culturally reflective mobile app for Black men to discover wellness resources and events without the overwhelm of algorithm-driven search tools that ignore lived experience and context? Is that the problem statement you're referencing?
Yeah.
Cool. It's one heck of a statement. We'd love to see a title on that section so we know where recruiters and hiring managers know exactly where to look. And then B, find a way to simplify that statement. I've read it. I still don't fully understand what it means. But like, if you're able to come up with a 9-word sentence of like, the problem is Black men don't have the resources and algorithms are out of touch. Like, I mean, I don't know what the context here is, but like some sort of quick statement that is able to describe that, would love to see that.
I do want to appreciate the format of the how might we's, and I see that you're trying to lean into how might we for this. This is the statement you're talking about, right, Nate? The how do we design?
Yeah, I think that's the problem statement at hand. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do want to appreciate that this is a how might we statement. I would say how might we statement, though, is a good design artifact, not a good portfolio header, right? So you might include this as a statement and part of your process and reasoning, but it's not quite as consumable for me as a bypasser, as a bystander, or no bypassers work, as a bypasser on your website. And so you want to simplify it for me, and then you can include this as one of your artifacts that they're talking about. So generating this and qualifying it, especially, right? You don't just want to drop this. You might want to call it out, say like, how do we design a minimalist mobile app for Black men to discover wellness? And like, this is our how might we statement. And then you might say this first part of it, the minimalist and culturally reflective part, because of this, the discover mobile wellness and events on mobile because of this. And that will be part of your reasoning and process and convince me that you're the greatest design manager, I think is what you're aiming for here. Design manager of all time here. There's a couple places as well where I think your copywriting is just redundant. I don't mean that in a reductive way. I just mean this in I'm looking for something more, like saying your action being I collaborated. I don't know. I don't see this as a valuable verb to include here, especially when you're leaning on a project manager. You might just want to say like, I constructed documentation. But even then, I feel like this is missing a lot of bite. You're going to want to improve this probably to reframe your actionabilities. And if you cannot reframe it into like solid, valuable actionability, then you'll just want to make this the roadmap overview, right? Mm-hmm. Wow, that really worked. That definitely did what I wanted it to, right there. Wow,
you're doing great.
So, and there's this eyebrow header you can see here from scope to insight. I also don't think this is adding a lot for you, right? This is adding noise to your page without adding a lot of value. So I don't know where that is, but I'd be really cautious of adding things like this, where it doesn't seem to be super constructive, and instead just adding noise here. This flow here as well. Nate mentioned that there's kind of an animation bug. This is kind of a weird format to digest it. I think it could just be because of the spacing. The spacing is quite intense. They're clickable. Whoa.
Oh, I didn't know they were clickable.
You should probably just have them open.
Okay.
I would just have them open. Don't let them close. Is it more obvious in the version where you don't butcher it? It's not that obvious at all. So this is totally missed. I would just have them be open. I don't think there's any reason to close them. When we're talking about like the size of a case study, adding visuals that have context in them is not bad size to have. So this would be okay. Although I do think maybe the shadow is a little bit strong here. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's cool. That's great. Let's talk about these images. These images are very blurry. In fact, this looks redacted. This looks like a redacted image. And if it is, yeah, it's blurred for confidentiality. In which case, I actually understand this. I understand your position. I would just make sure that the container wraps the images fully. Mm-hmm. And that's it. I would just make sure the container contains the images fully instead of having them kind of stick out a little bit. If they're going to stick out, just don't do containers, because having them be in a container but falling out of the container on the bottom feels more like a spacing error rather than intentional design, especially when some of them fit really well and some of them don't. So I don't know. I love if anyone has feedback in the chat, by the way. If anyone has feedback in the chat for this, let us know. Put it in here. Put it in here so we can keep going. Yeah, and just your margins are different in a lot of places. I think it's okay for these cards to go wide, but you'll see like these cards in the middle here don't end up being centered correctly. And you have this exclamation point and you have these question marks. I'm not sure they're great visual anchors. I don't think you need them. I think it'd be stronger, for example, if you were to say, just, can I move you? Wow, it does not want to move. Okay, there we go. Like I think this is a stronger card for sure, or even stacking them like this is a stronger card than having it super spread out and wide with an image on each side of it. So I would just go for, maybe centering that content. Same thing follows for down here when you're looking at something like this. I don't think this is adding a lot for you. I think that this format of showing user needs maybe looks a little bit dated. Oh, that's great. That's definitely what I wanted to do. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, something where you go something like this might land you a little bit better off, right? Where this is roughly centered, and then you have this as your left anchor. That might look a little bit nicer, and also follow your margins a little bit more closely. So you don't want to violate your margins so totally, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay. Nate, what else are you seeing in here before we get to maybe the biggest visual area of this?
I don't know that I am seeing anything else that needs immediate attention today. I think we're already talking about the most important items, and I think the rest of it's going to be secondary to emphasizing what we're currently talking about.
Okay, very cool. So like we said with the tabs before, tabs are hard to kind of get right. In this case, we have a lot of shadow and a lot of container and container. There's kind of an effect that happens that things will look nice without containers and things will look nice in containers. But once it becomes a container of a container with navigational containers, it can start to feel very heavy, especially when there's minor inconsistencies that you can't tell if they're on purpose or not. So for example, we have, you can see the separation here. So there seems to be like a drop shadow. I think it's the internal shadow for this container. Creates a separation between the top and the actual content, which makes it look worse than it probably deserves. You can also see that the tabs are drastically different sizes, and on hover, they lose a lot of space around them. These tabs would probably work better with a little bit more room to them, and if the internal tab font was smaller, which I don't know if I have a text tool for making fonts smaller. Let's see. We do. So even like these, that change starts to help us a little bit. Let's see. All right, we're giving the tab just a little more room to breathe. We'll help it kind of fit in a little bit more, and we're also giving it some more standardized spacing so they don't feel very different in their width size. We also have unstandard corners. Now, I truly don't think I have a corner width tool, but you will probably want to make your corner radius match the tab radius up here. And you'll want to create like a little bit of an offset, right? Just so it has a little bit of a tab effect probably. And standardizing that. That'll help a lot too. Then this color, this is a kind of I don't mean to say this, but it's kind of like a gross yellow. I hope this is not your favorite color in the world. But for example, you have a very nice yellow over here, and you could just use that nice yellow. You just use that nice yellow. That's a very simple, easy fix there. Just bring some color over here. Probably since this favors left aligned content, probably left align your text. Probably increase the size of the text. And then add some reasoning for it. What is the reason for these sketches? You can't just dump images on us and not explain how or why you made these decisions. You're going to need to separate these out and go one at a time. Otherwise, this format isn't going to work. So I'd expect to see one image with descriptions for what's going on, or 2 or 3 images that are very, very related that you then discuss and share why they matter. Nate, do you have a yes and for that, or a yes no for that?
No, I don't. But I appreciate you asking me.
Okay. We're just getting very specific here, and I want to make sure we're not over prescribing.
Yeah,
How do you feel, by the way, Caroline?
Yeah, I feel like this is all good feedback because yeah, I think it really like gives me like more insight as to what an outside eye can see as opposed to me who's been like working on the site for a bit and seeing like the same things. I think it's good to get that like outside opinion and just like more, I guess, like insight onto how people might view like the design of the site.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. And when you're showing big image carousels like this, you're also going to notice, and this is a rule that I follow. So some people are different. I find it's typically better to make sure you have like a minimum size things can be, because this minimum size, I think this is the original size for these images, is it's a little paltry. Like this, it's such a disservice to whatever this image is down here. So this would be an example of when it's appropriate to break out, to have like a new hero section. So you can show your images a little bit more fully if you wanted to do this sort of gallery layout. But you may be better off with a carousel, having a carousel of content that people can scroll through or look at. But definitely making the image viewport work here. For text needs to be a certain size so we can scan it. Images need to be more immersive so we can feel them and also see what's happening inside of these images so each of them makes sense, rather than them just being, kind of throwing them on a page. Like this iconography area, this typography looks kind of cool, but I can't discern literally anything out of here until it is a little bit bigger. So we'll even go even as it currently is. If you were to keep the yellow color, keep the rounding, but just really increase the visual density here, then suddenly this stands out a lot more. Now you're letting the design work that you did also speak. Also, I don't think this passes. It does pass. No, it doesn't pass. I was looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, this does not pass. This won't pass your color contrast. So you'll need to do some work here no matter what. But even then, I do find that this is maybe a little bit of a garish yellow. I'd either lift it or I would gray it. Right, and graying is probably the wrong choice. So I think you gotta stick to your normal colors here. That's probably a good place, and then you could even lighten. You could lighten that color just a little bit.
Tim, I'm looking at the clock. India, how are you feeling so far? We can continue talking about aesthetics, but it feels like the overall consensus is that we can improve the overall visual rundown of this. Do you feel like you've got some actionables and some takeaways that might enable you to enhance some of this?
Yeah, I think like this is all very helpful. Like I'll definitely get to it, I feel like.
Oh man, I'm if you're not sleeping tonight because you're working on this, don't come hunt me down. Don't we're all in here.
I can give you his personal phone number.
Oh yeah, well Nate actually could. Nate can actually give you. I can give you Nate's passwords. I can give you some of Nate's passwords.
Touche.
Touche. I could describe the state that Nate lives in, maybe. So what I would say is, you obviously have work in here, right? Like you have sketches, you have good foundations, you're showing systems. The way you're communicating those systems is not working, which I think it's a good place to be. It means that you're found like the pieces that are underpinning this work, right? This is not to invalidate the project or say this isn't worth showing off. But for example, tabs are navigation items, not scroll items. And this definitely does not work 100%. This is not the right way to communicate this type of system. But at the same time, you have images in here, you have text in here already. So this is just about like improving the way you're communicating your story and laying it out in a way that feels more natural and more aesthetic, so things don't get in the way of themselves. And also improving things like you can see here, like this iPhone has a corner radius. The box doesn't share that corner radius, which means you should either just make this whole section sharp or have it round exactly to the iPhone here. Just things like that are just going to be slightly off-putting details to someone who's looking at your project. I can't tell if that's a stock image or not. That's it's such an interesting image that I can't tell if it's stock or not. But Caroline, thank you for sharing your time with us today. We appreciate you showing stuff. So
Yeah, thank you so much for the feedback. This really helps.
Appreciate you being here. That's going to do it for Feedback Friday today. If you're new here, we do this every Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're looking to have your stuff reviewed in the future, you're going to want to show up 10 minutes early or so just to make sure you're one of the first on the list. Send us a link to your portfolio or your resume in the chat, and it's a first come, first served process. So the earlier you are, the better. Tim, any final words of wisdom before we part?
I just want to point out that this is so true. This is so true. We're sponsored by the Container Store. We always have been and always will be. And if you want to improve your website, you should go to the Container Store and buy your website at the Container Store.
We're part of Big Container.
We're part of Big Container. That's
There's a link to our YouTube
Got
channel
through.
in the chat. Feel free to subscribe if you want to take a look at all the future stuff, and then you get access to all the older videos we've done as well. Would love to see you all here next Friday as well. Tim, appreciate the time. Appreciate hanging out with you.
appreciate you as well, Nate. Are we doing any? Well, I guess it's the end of our stream. So thanks for being here, guys.
Take care, folks.